The Pride Cup is a country footy match designed to celebrate diversity and promote inclusion for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender and intersex community in sport. It's a match played in the Yarra Valley Mountain District Football Netball League between Yarra Glen and Warburton Millgrove. There's a lot of self-exclusion in sport. There's a lot of gay people who don't play sport, or they stop playing sport at one point in their lives because they can't deal with the amount of homophobic abuse that is in sport. And that can be direct abuse, or it can be subtle things like the use of homophobic words, not necessarily directed at anyone, but it has a really big impact.
Making all sporting environments an environment where everyone feels safe and feels confident and is able to be themselves regardless of their race or their gender or their sexuality. Obviously this one in particular is very important to me because I am a gay person and I play sport and I love sport. And
pretty much every person didn't know that I actually was gay, so hearing those casual, the phrase "that's so gay," it was quite hard to hear. Not that I took personal offence because I knew they weren't trying to attack me. It's more the fact that, okay, if they're sort of saying those sort of things, do they actually respect gay people?
We've grown up in a culture and we've become immune to a lot of the language that we use. That old saying you get taught as a kid, sticks and stones don't break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Well, it's completely untrue.
If we can raise people's awareness, then we can go a really long way, because sport is such a great thing. So for the gay community to be excluded from that just further compounds the challenges that they already face in their lives. As a committee, we came together quite early on to talk about how we could wrap education around the Pride Cup so that it would have a really meaningful impact. We wanted to brief players who were playing on both teams. We wanted to make sure that they understood what the messages of the Pride Cup were, understood why they were playing on that day, what are the challenges that the gay and lesbian community face in sport, but also to empower them with the tools to respond to comments that would no doubt come up with all of the media coverage around the Pride Cup.
We're going to be talking about the impacts of homophobia and discrimination, and the last thing, and perhaps the most important thing we're going to talk about tonight, is how to handle conversations around the Pride Cup. And you may or may not get some homophobic comments when you're having those conversations. So we're going to do a little activity that'll help you deal with those sorts of comments.
Yeah, I think giving them some tools around how you can potentially intercept language that's occurring, because I think we would all agree that it's not an easy thing to do. Pippa Grange commented on her panel that she also, as a leader in cultural change, had been in a situation where she had overheard homophobic language that she had trouble challenging.
A couple of years ago, I was sitting in a coach's box for an AFL game, and somebody had fumbled the ball and the coach let out a really big homophobic slur, and I happened to know that one of the other coaches in the box had a gay son. He didn't speak up, I didn't speak up. I will address it, even if I need to work out how. So the intention and the will to do something, even if you don't have to do something right there and then. And this is what I saw, and I won't be offering any leadership unless I share this with you. And he came straight back and said, "Thank you for doing that. I'll address it immediately."
We worked with the Yarra Valley Mountain District Football Netball League to host the game on a Sunday, whereas games are usually played on a Saturday, which enabled us to invite the presidents of all of the clubs in the league to hopefully be inspired to be able to take that message back to their own teams.
The luncheon was seen as the second piece of education. So while there were a lot of people in that room who I guess were invited as VIP guests, our main agenda was really about influencing those presidents and those other clubs and leagues who are in the club around what this means.
My wish would be to end discrimination in all shapes and forms. And if you could do that, we would end up with a much more tolerant community. There would be less despair, less brutalisation, and certainly a lot less pain.
The third piece, and probably the most important piece, was we wanted to talk to coaches. Coaches had probably the biggest influence on a culture within a football club, and they have a really fantastic opportunity to influence the young people who they interact with. There's a lot of respect that coaches demand, and we wanted to be able to make sure that they felt empowered to stand up to homophobia where they saw it in their club, to recognise what homophobia was but also understand how to challenge it. It's likely that they've been coaching with gay players already and not knowing it, because sexuality, unlike race, is invisible. One of the biggest things was encouraging them to speak from their own experiences, and surprisingly a lot of them had had experiences that they'd probably never talked about. And to actually get that group talking about that, it doesn't matter what football team they were from, it created a space with which that conversation could happen for the first time, and that was incredibly powerful.
I learned that young people who are gay are up to 6 times more likely to suffer from depression or attempt suicide than the rest of the population, largely because of the discrimination and the harassment that they face, but also the fact that there are no openly gay Aussie rules players. I remember thinking when I was young and struggling to come to terms with who I was, especially in that football environment, if I had have known of such thing as a gay footballer, if I had have known that he could be out to his teammates and that it wouldn't be a big deal, that would have made a world of difference to me.
Look, I'm just very proud of Jason and very proud of all the players and proud of the club. I think Jason has shown a lot of courage, and I really hope that he's making it easier for lots of other young sports people across the country.
Yeah, I didn't want to give up footy. I loved footy, and to be able to run out on a field with a rainbow 50-metre line and play in a Guernsey with the rainbow in the design, the international symbol of gay pride, that was really sending a message, not just a message of support for me, but to any other players in the Valley who are gay, for any kids in that community, that it's okay to be who you are. And it's a message of acceptance coming from country football of all places. And if it can be okay in country footy, then it can be okay anywhere.